Welcome back to In 5. I'm Andre Rodrigues.
And I'm Annabelle Eirth.
Our special guest today is a man that has a career that spans over 40 years. And the best part is, he's self-taught. He has been flown around the world and he's worked with many major companies on their marketing campaigns. So please put your hands together for Mr. Chris Huzzard. Thank you for joining us today, Chris.
Very welcome.
So Chris, you've got a 40-year photography career and you started yourself. How did you come about doing that?
Well, my father did a 11-night course at Tech, and he was very keen. I used to talk with him while he was processing his films and printing the black and white photos. And so I learned that side of things first, and then he was away on a business trip and my sister was doing a bit of modelling, and she wanted a particular shot to go for a job, so she conned me into nicking his camera, and we did some shots and they turned out really well. And a friend of hers wanted to enter the Dolly magazine competition, and so Dad was still away, so I thought, here's a bit of a lark, you know, great looking girl. So we did that, and about a month later the magazine called the girl and said, can we see the rest of your portfolio? And I get a call, quick, we've got to do some more photos. Well, Dad was back and we had to own up to it all, and he was a bit furious, but it was sort of on a successful note, so he loaned me the camera again and we did some more, and then she won it for the whole of Australia. So then her agency said, do you want to photograph the rest of our girls? And I said, could they at least pay for the film and the chemicals? And they said, we'll pay you what we paid the guy we were using before. So it worked out really well. So my fourth ever shoot was my first professional shoot. But for a long time I thought, you know, I don't want this to be my full-time job, because if you know how
40 years later.
Yeah, well, you know, you hear people, you know, getting involved in their passion and then they learn to hate it. And I thought, you know, I'll just do it on the weekends and enjoy doing it. But it just gradually, I had a row with the boss, and he said, if you're so smart, how come I'm doing this and you're working for me? And I thought, pfft. So I was earning more on the weekends doing photography than I was working for him anyway, so that was an easy decision to make.
Oh, that's incredible. So
And what age should that start, the working for yourself?
Oh, well, full time. I've got to go back in this current studio I've had for 5. The one before that was 13, so it's 18. About 26 years ago.
26 years ago.
I know, frightening, isn't that?
Oh, God.
But one of the perks of being such a good photographer is that you get flown around. I mean, we were talking earlier about where you've been, and there was a project where you were flown to, was it 11 different countries in 18 days?
Yeah.
You want to tell us a bit about that?
Well, that was for an accounting firm called Accenture, and it was basically just doing headshots of a lot of their executives. And so I was flying around. Well, there was a guy doing the interviews, and there was me doing the photos, and it was great. It was, you know, it sounds arduous, but it wasn't. It was good fun.
Yeah? Was it like long days in between? How many hours were you working?
Well, you didn't really have that much time in between, because you basically landed, scoped where you were shooting and all of that sort of thing, and then the next day you'd do the shoot and then you'd be taking off again, you know.
What was the nicest place that you went to? Most picturesque.
Oh, there's a lot of places. I mean,
I'm sure.
Switzerland is amazing. New Zealand is amazing. New Orleans, I haven't been back since the hurricane there, but New Orleans was great fun. The French Quarter I would recommend. Probably the rest is just a city.
All right. Never been there myself, but I'll do that when I go there.
Can I hide in your suitcase?
Oh yeah, sure. Can fit.
I enjoyed New York. Didn't particularly like LA. We did a little bit in Colorado, that's also very picturesque and nice. Oh, there's good things to be said about most places. Yeah.
Well, you've been doing this for quite a while and clearly very successfully. Do you have any advice that you would give to anyone else wanting to pursue a career just like yours?
Well, I think one of the traps is to rely on the equipment too much. I mean, you hear people who are incredible equipment snobs.
Equipment snobs.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it was brought home to me fairly early. My dad took me to a friend of his who he'd learnt with, and this guy had all the equipment in the world, and his photos were terrible. But everything he talked about was the equipment, the equipment, the equipment. And I think one of the great things about, and the reason Australian photographers, specifically Western Australian photographers, do really well, is they don't have the budget for the big equipment. There's no place to rent it. So you've got clients coming to you with very small budgets and very little time, but they want a result like they see in the magazines, you know. And so you've got photographers here that are wrangling amazing stuff out of very basic equipment. And then when you get to the bigger time, you know, people are saying, how the hell are you doing that? You know, where did you come from? Well, you know, and the other thing is here you have to be all things to all people. Like, you know, there's not enough money or population to become a real serious specialist. I had a girl who used to rent my studio, and she went to New York and really struggled to get representation. Finally got a job shooting white clothes on a white background and nailed it. And the agency she got the job through said, oh, we've been looking for a white-on-white photographer for ages. And she could make a living shooting white on white, but she was sort of saying, no, give me something else. You'll see I can do something else other than white on white. But in New York, you see, you nail that process and you can make a living. So then you don't have to become good at everything else. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, you have to become good at everything else. So, yeah. So that's probably one of the big things. You know, don't rely too much on the equipment.
What else contributes to making a great photograph? Because you did say it's not just the equipment.
No, the thing is, you've got to look. You've got to look at the light. And I see so many people say, I'm doing 3-point lighting, and this light goes here, this light goes here, and that's it.
The standard
right?
setup, yeah.
Yep, that's it. And they're not looking at whether that suits the model or not. And what you find, one of the simplest techniques, or one of the really important techniques, especially when you're doing beauty shots and stuff like that, is to look at this plane here. Okay. If the light's too low, that'll go dark. And usually if the light's too high, you'll get a little crease under the eye. So lift the light and lower the light and check out what's happening there. Because if the light's too low, it's like shining a torch up under your face and you get a real spooky kind of look. But amazing how many people don't see that happen.
So follow the light on the eye bags, and basically you're saying.
Something like no, I've got to say you set this up nicely. It's fine.
Very judged now. You've obviously been in this field a while, and you seem like you've really stood on your own and come into it on your own. But over the years, has there ever been anyone that was particularly influential towards you or your work? There's a couple of people who've come up through. I've usually owned my own studio, and people who've come up through that who've ended up being just outrageously good. And one's a guy called Gavin O'Neill, and he does the most extraordinary beauty and body shots. You know, his nude women's shots are phenomenal, really, really glorious. So if you want to check that out, he's really, really spectacular. And Nicole Bentley was another one. She yeah, she shoots a lot of stuff now for Vogue and Marie Claire and things like that. But and a funny story, if you don't mind.
Of course,
Is,
yeah.
A lot of times we get companies come over from Sydney to shoot, and most of the time, especially Sydney, a little less so Melbourne and all, but Sydney, they'll bring everything. That nobody's good enough. Nothing's good enough. The equipment's not going to be good enough. They'll fly in all this equipment. So anyway, one particularly egregious chap, well, no, he was all right, but he had been quite difficult with, you know, what they required and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, his assistant was setting everything up, and he said, "Oh, show me the rest of the studio, Chris." So at that stage, we had the one in between Murray and Wellington Streets, and so there were 6 studios in that, and so we were wandering up through the thing, and Nick Bentley was up the top shooting with one light and a model and shooting in the dark and quietly and all that, and so we went in, and he was a bit dismissive, and anyway, so on the way back I was fuming a frack, and I said, "You know what's funny?" And he said, "What's that, Chris?" And I said, Marie Claire brought you over from, Marie Claire Malaysia brought you over from Sydney to shoot this, and Marie Claire in Sydney are getting her to come over to Sydney to shoot their stuff." And he said, "Who was that?" And I said, "Oh, Nick Bentley." He said, "That was Nick Bentley, but she's so nice." And I thought, "Yeah, bastard." Anyway.
I suppose you have to have a certain level of humility as well. You know, nobody wants to work with you, I guess, after that.
I think you just have to bear in mind you're part of a team.
That's it, yeah.
So like on those US shoots, there's up to, we've had 27 people on the crew. You get one person being a diva and it stuffs it up, you know? Like the whole dynamic changes. You know, they said this and it just changes everything. Yeah. But in general, what I find is most people get the fact that it's a team effort.
That's a really good tip. So now that you've obviously been in this a while, what's one thing you wish you knew when you started?
There are people who just crap on about rubbish. I mean, they're building themselves up, and you know they are all this, you know, and then in the end you find out, nah, they're not really. And I would like to. It would have been great in the really early stages to know when someone was doing that, you know.
Oh, yes, I imagine there's a few stories there.
Yeah, that's right. And you have your own studio. Is that open for hire to anybody that wants to use it as well?
Yeah. We've got, it's a complex. It's 4,200 square metres, and there's 18 studios. So, and they range from, the idea was we want the centre of excellence and also a incubator for other businesses. So, like, there are studios there for $27.50 an hour with all the equipment and the whole bit.
So all the equipment as well.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So you can come in and you can learn your craft, and if you're a student, there's a discount, 30% discount on that as well. So so then, you know, it's possible when you come out of TAFE and things like that you've had access to a studio, although it's fairly crowded sometimes at those institutions. But you know, you come out of there with very little, and it's sort of great to be able to price in something into the price of your shoot, so that you can say, "Oh yeah, I have access to a studio." You come in, and it makes it possible to get a start. And a lot of the people then carry on. That they might get their own studio if they want, or they go off to Europe or the East or America or whatever, and there's quite a big, they call it the WA mafia in England and in New York and all of that. Well, it's just, you know, that there's a whole pile of people who are from Western Australia in a lot of these big centres because they've done well.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to rent the studio, where would they go? Would they go to your website?
Yeah, there's a Huzzard Studios website, and there's pictures of the studios. There's a couple of new ones the pictures aren't that great yet, but still we'll get there. And and then also, if they want, they can give us a call and ask, tell us what they're trying to shoot, and ask our opinion. And especially early on in the piece, if they need a bit of a hand, just because flash photography can be pretty scary.
All right. So you're there to also tell them, to guide them a little bit.
Yeah. So this is how you set it up, and your camera will have to be like this and stuff like that.
And we'll put the details and the website at the bottom as well in the description.
Yeah, go check that out, guys.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank
We really appreciate you taking the time out. We enjoyed having you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
So what's happening this week, Annabelle?
Well, this week we've got a lot going on, guys. There's Birds of Tokyo. They're going to be performing at the Rottnest Hotel on Rottnest Island. So tickets can be purchased from ticketpasta.com.au. So please go check that out. That's on the 11th of April. We've also got Missy Higgins at Fremantle Prison from the 15th to the 16th. She's an ARIA-nominated singer-songwriter from Australia, and you can buy tickets at viagogo.com. So please go check her out. She's amazing. And lastly, we also have Here Comes the Rooster. They're a little Perth band. They're going to be performing on the 17th of April. They're Perth rock and roll. They'll be at the Aardvark Bar from 7 p.m. So you can do door sales or you can get them from Eventbrite. So guys, please go check them out. It's always good to support some local talent.
In other news, our guest from last week, Angelina Curtis.
Yes.
Yeah, she has just landed the lead role in the new feature film called Sherbhead by Philindale Films and directed by Sarah Legg. So that's exciting. I'm
amazing.
looking forward to seeing that. And we'd also like to thank our sponsors, Malaga Print and Copy. So for all your printing needs, please contact Felicity or from Malaga Print and Copy.
Thank you so much for our other sponsors, Vicki, Wesley and Karen Grove. She's all for embroidery and for branding, and you can find all their numbers and details in our description, guys. So please go and support them.
Mm-hmm. And also we'll appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe to these videos. It helps us a lot and will keep us making more content for you. I'm Andre Rodrigues.
And I'm Annabelle Eirth.
And this is In 5. Thank you.
Bye, guys.